Okay, so the last section in the 4 pillars is mindfulness. So we've talked about sleep, we've talked about diet, we've talked about body movement. But the last one is mindfulness. And this is probably the hardest one to really explain because everyone has a different experience when it comes to mindfulness. And I'll try and explain to you how I see mindfulness and how it fits into a healthy diet and lifestyle plan so that you can get the best out of life, so that we take these 4 pillars together, and when you combine them together, your body can be in a state of regeneration or at the very least slow that degenerative process. So mindfulness, really what is it? It's such a broad term. To me, what it means is 2 parts. The first part is trying to balance out your nervous system activity. So this balance between stress and rest. And if we're constantly stressed and in a hyper mode, which tends to be the norm this day in society, our body doesn't get a time to rest and balance. And if you consume the videos before I explain the degenerative process that happens in the body, and the nervous system plays a critical role in that. And to me, mindfulness is focusing on the body in relaxing activities and mindful activities so that you can balance out that inevitable stress response that happens throughout the day. And there's many things that you can do to help that, but we need to balance that activity between parasympathetic and sympathetic. So they're the 2 branches of our nervous system. And as I said, relaxation tends to regulate our parasympathetic nervous system, and then stress tends to drive our sympathetic nervous system. And unless you get that balance right, you can end up with chronic stress levels, chronic elevated cortisol levels, and this leads to elevated inflammation, it leads to suppressed immune system, and a whole raft of inflammatory conditions. And you could argue that stress is the most toxic and pervasive element in our society in terms of important focuses on our health. So it's really, really important that we are mindful. So being mindful is being aware of that nervous system balance. And one of the best ways to do that and to gauge that level of activity is look at what you're doing, look at that level of brain activity. But the breath is a really good signpost to how you are feeling. And the breath works both ways. When you're excitable, stressed, your breath will shorten and become lighter and faster. When we're relaxed, it becomes deeper and more rhythmic. Now, that happens as a result of how you're feeling. But on the flip side, if you mindfully do breath work and you slow the breath down and you slow the breathing down, you breathe properly, that then balances the nervous system out. So it's really important that you're aware of that. And it's just like stress is accumulative, relaxation is accumulative too. And it's one of these things where stress is inevitable in our lives, but you've got to make sure you offset that by doing breath work, exercising, reading a book, and trying to really make sure you have that downtime. Because if you're up all the time, then when you sleep, you won't get that sufficient downtime healing when we need it the most, and you'll stay in this sort of degenerative state. You've got to make time to look after yourself. And we're constantly seeing this in our groups of a couple of 100,000 people, is women particularly say, I just don't have time, but men as well. When you get into your 40s and 50s in high pressure jobs, and women as well, it becomes really hard to look after yourself. So if you find yourself in that situation, a very simple thing is do some breath work, do some meditation, get back into nature. These things are really important to balance that nervous activity out, and it becomes one of those pillars. It's no use getting your body movement exercise right and getting your diet right if you're not putting enough time and energy into balancing that nervous system and being mindful of what's going on in your mind, but in your nervous system. Because if you don't get that right, you won't sleep well, 100%. So, and if you don't get that right, then you'll be stressed, then you won't eat well. And if you don't eat well, you won't have the energy, then you won't exercise. So although mindfulness tends to be the fourth pillar in terms of importance, you could put it at the top if you want to, because it's one of those gateway areas that allows you to get into the right frame of mind. It allows your nervous system to calm and to work properly, because if you're constantly in this stressful state, so many systems turn off. You know, for women, your reproductive system, reproductive hormones go haywire. Your immune system drops. Inflammation levels increase in a response to this. And 100 years ago, our stresses were very short-lived. Now we're in this constant low-grade stress, sometimes high-grade stress. It has a lot of degenerative tendencies on the human body. And what we're all about is, remember, getting you back in balance and ideally getting you into a state where the body will heal itself. To do that, you've got to put those 4 pillars together. So just quickly again, it's sleep, it's exercise, body movement, it's diet, and it's mindfulness. It all starts with the mind, and trying not to overthink things, trying to let things in the past go, and trying not to live too much in the future, trying to be in the present. That's mindfulness. So try and explore that. And as I said, it's a very personal thing, and it's something that you really, yes, you can be taught it, but it's something you need to experience. But I put it very mindfully into one of the pillars, because without that mindfulness, it makes it very hard for the other pillars to come together. So hope that makes sense. Let me know if you've got any questions, and I'd be happy to help.